The Excel XLOOKUP function is a replacement, like I said, for older lookup functions that existed in Excel. It's a much more dynamic formula than the older lookups, and it can be used in various ways to get various results. So it has a lot more capability than the old lookups. So let's look at the parameters that go into an XLOOKUP. There are 3 mandatory parameters which must be in every XLOOKUP. This is the lookup value, which is the value you're looking for, the lookup array, which is the range you're looking for your lookup value in, and the return array, which is the array of values that you want returned in your XLOOKUP. There are 3 then optional fields, but I'm going to look at those optional fields in examples later on. So let's look at an example then of the XLOOKUP in action. Here in column B, we want the salary returned for Anya Barnwell, Brian Barrett, Karen Barry, etc. This information here is in our lookup data table. Now we can see that the lookup value will be the name. Now we cannot do a VLOOKUP in this instance because the name, which is the lookup value, is to the right of the value we want returned, which is the salary. So let's open up our XLOOKUP. Our first value is our lookup value, which is the name. So that's the unique value that's in both sets of data. Our lookup array is where that lookup value is present. So that'll be the name data here in column H in our lookup data. Then in order to lock down that cell, in order for us to drag down the XLOOKUP later, we need to press F4 to lock that lookup array, which is similar to what you would have done in a VLOOKUP. And then we're into our return array. So unlike the VLOOKUP where you would have had to specify a number of rows, where you'd have to put in a row number, here we can straight away just select our return array and drag this down. And it's important that our return array and our lookup array have the same number of rows. So it's 16 to 35. And again, we lock that. And then, there we go. And then we can drag that straight down, and we have the salary returned of these various workers. So the advantage that this XLOOKUP has over, say, a VLOOKUP, one, you can have your lookup value to the right of your return value, which isn't possible in a VLOOKUP. 2, you don't have to look up the amount of rows to get the row number. So say if we do a VLOOKUP there, you would have to go how many rows are between your lookup value and your return value, which again can be cumbersome if you are dealing with a large data set. As well as that, the XLOOKUP can look both horizontally and vertically. So with the old lookup, you'd use a VLOOKUP if you were looking up rows, and you'd use a HLOOKUP if you were looking up columns. The XLOOKUP can do both, which makes it just an easier formula to use. But then we look at, so we're going to take another example here. I want you guys to look at this. So if we go to the next tab, which is basic XLOOKUP example, I want to just take a few minutes. I want you guys to try and use, based on using an XLOOKUP, return the number of appearances for the 5 footballers in column B. Okay, so how we do this is our XLOOKUP. Our lookup value will be the name, which is present in both. Our lookup array is the data in column G, and we must lock that. And our return array is the number of appearances, because that's the value we want returned. Again, we must lock for dragging down. And then there, you can see Ross Munley equals 78. So another advantage that the XLOOKUP has is it has an optional parameter which is called not found. So what this is should your XLOOKUP be unable to find the value you're looking for, instead of returning a #NA error message, you can specify the value you want returned in that instance. Previously, if you were using a VLOOKUP, you would probably nest a lookup function within an if error formula, but the XLOOKUP allows us to specify a not found value without opening up another formula or without nesting a formula within another formula. So again, same data as before. But in this instance, we know that some of the names here, such as Gute Alexander, isn't present in this table. So we open up our same XLOOKUP as before. Our lookup value is the name. Our lookup array again is the names in column F. And press F4. And our return array is the salary data, which is the same as before. So then we go in and we can see here the next parameter is if not found, and the parameter here is in brackets. So that means it's an optional parameter. So you could leave that blank and not populate it and the formula would still work. But in this instance, we want to specify a value. So we want to put in text. So we open up our quotations. I want to go not found. We want returned. Now, my next two parameters, match mode and search mode, I don't want to specify. So I can simply just close my formula rather than populating them. And so Anya Barnwell is there, but when we drag this formula down, we'll see for Brian Barrett and Sean Bourne, they're not present in the table, so their data comes up. Their result, their value is returned as not found. So again, just want to if people can take an example there and work on what we have here is another data example here. So we have 5 counties here, and then we have a list of All Ireland winners here. We want to use XLOOKUP. We want the number of All Irelands returned for the counties not found for each county, but if the county can't be found, we want to return the text no All Irelands. So just take a minute there and do that. So XLOOKUP, open our XLOOKUP. Lookup value is the name of the county. Our lookup array is the county names. Our return array is the number of All Irelands. Don't forget to lock. And then we're into our 4 parameter, which is the optional parameter of if not found. So in here we want to specify no All Ireland. And because we're writing text, we want to put in quotations. So the formula knows that it's returning. So here you can see from Monaghan and Longford, instead of returning a #NA error message, which would make our data unworkable, or we wouldn't be able to sum our data, I might actually show you if we were to not include that. you would get this hashtag NA message because they weren't found. And the issue with that is if you wouldn't be able to sum the data at the bottom and data wouldn't be workable. So by having that number of All Ireland's text in there, we can actually go ahead and sum our data. So like you said, people are probably familiar with using nesting a VLOOKUP within an if-error formula to get that function. But the XLOOKUP allows us to do this all within one formula, which is more transparent for reading the formula and less time consuming by having to open up multiple formulas. So the next parameter here is the match mode. So at the end of a VLOOKUP, you have two options for match mode. You can specify true or false. One is an exact match and one is an approximate match. By default, the XLOOKUP will default to an exact match. So that's why we would have, in those other examples, we would have left our match mode blank because we wanted an exact match every time. But within XLOOKUP, you have 4 options for a match mode. Now it's again, this is an optional parameter with this bracket. So by default, it'll default to an exact match, but you have 2 options for an approximate match. So if you go -1 as the parameter, you can go, it'll give you an exact match or next smallest. If you go 1, it'll give you an exact match or next larger. Or 2 is a wildcard match, which essentially means if there's where you match one word. So say if you were looking up Matthews here and you wanted Matthew Robinson returned, but you just had Matthew in as the lookup value, it would return anything that included a word, not just the exact match. But we're going to look at an approximate match here. So in this example here, we have salary brackets. So up to a certain salary, your salary is, in this example, up to a certain salary, you're in a certain bracket. So if your salary is 25,000 or less, you're in bracket 1. If your salary is 50,000 or less, you're in bracket 2, etc. And we want the salary bracket returned here in this table here. Now none of the values in the salary will match exactly to the salary bracket cutoffs. So we want to use an XLOOKUP with an approximate match. So we open up our XLOOKUP. Our lookup value is the salary in this instance because that's what's present in both, not the name. Our lookup array is the salary bracket cutoffs. Our return array is the names here of the brackets. And then we press our comma and it'll bring us into the if not found parameter, but we want to leave that blank because we're not actually specifying a not found in this example. So we just press comma again to leave that blank. And now we're into our match mode. So we want to know if the salary is up to 25 grand, it's bracket 1. So what we want to pick is exact match or next larger item. So that gives you this one value. So you can either type 1 or you can pick the match mode. Now we're not going to specify a search mode, so we can just close the XLOOKUP there. And this will return a bracket 1. Here all the brackets are returned. So even though the salary isn't the same as the salary cutoffs, we have an approximate match which gives an exact match or next largest, and it specifies the brackets. So again, we're going to look at an example here. We have Instagram accounts here and we have the number of followers that the Instagram accounts have. Based on this, we want to assign a celebrity status based on the number of followers. So if they have 300,000 or more, they're A-list. If they have 250,000 or more, 250,000 or more, they're B-list. So using that, assign a celebrity status to the Instagram accounts using an XLOOKUP with an approximate match. So to do this one, our lookup value is the number of followers. Our lookup array is the followers here in column C. Our return array is the celebrity status options in column B. We are not bothering with an if not found parameter, so we press the comma again, and now we have to pick our match mode. So if the account has 300,000 followers or more, it is A-list. So the match we have to pick here is exact match or next smaller item, because anything above 300,000 is A-list, or 300 million rather. So we have the -1 value here, where we have the 1 value in the other one. And then we don't select the search mode, so we can just shut that formula. And I haven't actually locked my cells, so I can't drag it down. And straight away then we'll have these celebrity status assigned, even though the follower numbers doesn't exactly match the follower brackets, but it works for an approximate match. So the final optional parameter in an XLOOKUP is the search mode. So again, if you compare it to a VLOOKUP will always search from first to last. So that means if there's multiple instances of a lookup value in your lookup array, it'll take the first one. And by default, an XLOOKUP will search your lookup array from first to last, so your first row downwards, or your first column to the right, working its way over to the right. But we have the option to select the search mode and how it searches. So in this data here, which again I'm using the salary example, we want the latest salary returned. But we can see that for Anya Barnwell, Karen Barry, Margaret, there's multiple instances of their salary. They have the 2020 value and the 2021 value of their salary within the data. By default, the XLOOKUP will take the first instance, so it'll take the 2020 salary, but we don't want that. We want the latest salary, so we want the XLOOKUP to search from last to first rather than from first to last. So we can do that. Our lookup value, again, same parameters as before. Return array is the salary, FN F4. We don't want to bother with an if not found value, because it will be found. We want an exact match, and by default the XLOOKUP will pick an exact match, so we don't need to specify the fifth parameter. And then our sixth parameter is where we specify the search mode, and here we want to we want this -1 search last to first value in there. And we can see here, latest salary, instead of taking Anya Barnwell's 2020 salary of 65 grand, it takes Anya Barnwell's 2021 salary of 75 grand. And we can drag that down, save and acknowledge that it's going to take the latest salary where there's multiple instances of a value. So again, we're going to look at the look at an example. We have a list here of World Cup winners and the year they won the World Cup. And obviously some countries have won the World Cup multiple times. Using the XLOOKUP here, we want to know the year that the country specified in column B won their first World Cup winner using the XLOOKUP. So I might just give it. How we do that is XLOOKUP, our lookup value is country, lookup array is the list of champions, return array is the year, that's what we want returned. And it's important then, if you pick the title column for the return array, it's important to pick it for the lookup array, and vice versa. If you don't pick it for the lookup array, it's important not to pick it, not to include the title for the lookup array and return array. So you have the same number of columns or rows for your lookup array and your return array. If not found, we don't want to specify a value for if not found. Match mode, again, we want an exact match, so it'll pick exact match by default. And search from last to first, or search from first to last. We want the first time they won the World Cup, so we want it to start at the bottom of the list and work its way up. So we click this -1 value, and there we go. And then we have the first year that the team won. So Italy won the last one in 2006. So if we didn't specify the search mode, it would have returned 2006. But because we did, and we told it to search from last to first, it gives us 1934.